One of the big stories this week over the last few days, people in Cape Town dealing with that incredible smell that came from the ship, the Al-Kuwait. It was carrying 19,000 head of cattle, cows. It docked at the port of Cape Town. The cattle are being kept in small lots. They're not being cared for properly. Many of them are standing or lying in their own feces. They're being taken to the Middle East where they'll be slaughtered there. The NSPCA actually had to put down several of the cattle because of their poor health. Thina Nodada is the Managing Director of Waymaker Trade Solutions. Thina, good afternoon. It's a busy day. I'm glad that you're able to come in. Thank you. How important is this kind of trade, the livestock trade, for South Africa at the moment?
Well, Stephen, it's important, especially if we're looking at our growth of our exports over the next 5 to 10 years. In the short term, not so big, but in the long term, we do have an outlook to actually start improving our livestock exports from South Africa going into other countries. And what makes this one so much more interesting is that it's actually going to the Middle East, which is the highest importing area within the world. 74% of live animal exports actually go to the Middle East internationally. So these guys are very big players in terms of importing livestock, and they've been doing this around many places. So when you look at it from a short-term perspective, the benefits it has for South Africa, if you look at just the company who was actually doing that shipping, Al-Mawashi, actually has presence in South Africa. These guys are create jobs in South Africa. They have feedlots, they have abattoirs, they have butcheries, mainly in the Eastern Cape area, and they've also been involved in exports before from South Africa. So when you make, and they've also had conflicts in the past with the SPCA where their animals have struggled to leave South Africa. And what this does for us in the short term is that Al-Mawashi is currently purchasing animals from a young age, young cattle, that are going into their feedlots. And these are being bought from our farmers in South Africa, some of our emerging farmers and our growing farmers. And the purpose of them putting them into their feedlots is to ensure that these animals, after when they're of age to start being shipped out to the Middle East, they are able to meet all the standards so that they are export ready. So animals that there's animals currently being purchased in South Africa for these similar purposes, and this is contributing to jobs. It's also contributing to incomes for people that are struggling to make an income, largely within the emerging farmers in South Africa.
Obviously, a ship, I presume, it's much cheaper to move a cow or thousands of cattle by ship than it is by air. But apparently it does happen by air too.
No, definitely. Air freight shipments happen where we are handling live cattle, live goats as well. That happens a lot. And it is more suitable because of the time frame. The animals are there within 2 days. You must remember the animals usually have to go quarantine for about 30 days before to check for any form of disease and clear them before they can actually get onto the flight. But yes, air freight is definitely an option, but a lot more expensive as well.
Is there a demand for live animals in the Middle East? I mean, it would seem, I presume it is cheaper to, there's no other way to put this, to transport cattle who are dead than it is cattle that are alive.
Look, in 2022, the Middle East imported $3.5 billion worth of live animals. So there's definitely a market there, and this is for various reasons. Firstly, a lot of live cattle breeds cannot survive in the climates and the desert, and they can't actually really breed their own and create their own market. So they have to import, and that's what, like you said, it's for slaughter. So definitely there's a market. Just to put it in context, we do $49 million worth of livestock exports. The Middle East is now taking in $858 million in 1 year. And they take 74%. So it's by far the biggest growing and the best area in terms of importing of live animals. And they're doing it all over. As you see, this shipment was coming from Brazil. They have done some from South Africa as well. There's definitely opportunity there.
One of the things about international trade, I mean, we talk about how you would move livestock, but we also, as a country, as you know, we need to move coal, we need to move all sorts of commodities. We've had huge problems with Transnet in doing this. The ports are a problem, and then the railways are a problem. And I noticed in today's budget, from what I could see, there was no new money for Transnet, despite all of the problems it faces. Is that a concern?
Look, Stephen, I think what Transnet's done is try to bring in private sector to be role players within the different modes of transport. I know that there's a couple of guys getting involved on the rail side, which is a big opportunity as well. If we want to move cargo at the lowest cost in our country and on our continent and on SADC, of course, then rail would be the cheapest and most affordable means to do it. The problem is the infrastructure. Transnet owns over 70% of Africa's rail infrastructure. So it actually can go a long way, and the entry of private sector is certainly something that's exciting. But I think, Stephen, beyond that, we've got to look at, we are not proposing that the SPCA is incorrect in going and inspecting that ship. But we've been privy to information where a shipment was done of a similar sort, leaving from East London, going to the Middle East as well. And the guys from SPCA were there to inspect the ship. They were there over and over and over again until they were actually satisfied with the conditions for these to be exported. So it's not nice for anybody to be finding themselves in a stinky situation in Cape Town CBD and to see animals in that situation. But in that ship didn't come from South Africa. It was passing by, so it's transshipping by South Africa. And quite frankly, in South Africa, we have the SPCA that actually does monitor these things and puts a lot of effort into ensuring that these animals travel in a good condition. Yeah.
Transnet made the point to us yesterday, in fact, that they allowed the ship in to help the animals because they knew that was the best thing to do would be to make sure the animals had enough food.
Yeah.
It would seem that we're actually in quite a good position then, not just for the Middle East, but other markets as well, to export food there. We are, and this is something that we need to remember, a food exporting country, which means we can also be a livestock exporting country to many markets.
Yeah. Look, definitely, I think one of the problems we've had when it comes to livestock exports has been largely around foot and mouth disease, where it then becomes quite difficult to get entry into other countries if we're exporting to them. But again, you've mentioned Transnet, and we're big citrus exporters. We do a lot of fruit exports, apples, etc. And our delays at the ports that we've seen in the Cape Town harbour and the Durban harbour as well have contributed to some losses coming through to farmers and producers that are exporting fruits and vegetables. So definitely we export a wide range of different products. You just mentioned coal. But the live animal one, especially when you're looking at cattle, sheep and goats, has got a lot of potential to change and contribute to economic growth in South Africa. Because we know that our agriculture industry has got some of the greatest potential to actually improve what our current status as an economy. Because it gives jobs to the lowest of people. People without education can start earning an income so we've seen unemployment figures that have been coming up and everything else that's coming up. It's a bit of a dire situation. So for us, if we are able to manage the diseases and what they call sanitary and phytosanitary measures, then we should be able to export and start including more people as we go. And hence I said to you, it's not going to happen overnight, but over 5 years, over 10 years, definitely. And we've got big interest from companies like Al-Mawashi, as I've mentioned. They are in South Africa, creating jobs, opening businesses, feedlots, butcheries, abattoirs.
Thina Nodada, thanks very much indeed, Managing Director at Waymaker Solutions.